Hey Crafty fam, it's Alex Vanover and welcome back to my craft room. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make your very own acrylic Christmas ornament using UV resin, glitter, and pattern vinyl. So let's get started. So in order to get started with our penguin ornament, the first thing we need to do is download the coordinating SVG file that goes along with the ornament. And I purchased my ornament at 143 Vinyl, so make sure that you go check it out if you want to make the same ornament as me. And the easiest way to find the downloads page for all of the SVG files is to actually go back to the product and then scroll down into the description and find this link that says click here to access the download page for SVG files that match our acrylic blanks. So even though it's not highlighted blue, it is a link. Go ahead and click it. And then you'll see a whole page of all of the SVG files, and they are in alphabetical order. So since we are making a penguin ornament, we'll scroll down to the P's. And click on Penguin Ornament, and that will begin an automatic download into your downloads folder. Then you can go into Cricut Design Space and upload the SVG file. So you just go to Upload over here in the Design panel and choose Upload Image and then Browse and go to the location of your download. Mine always automatically downloads into my Downloads folder, but if you don't see yours here, then it probably downloaded somewhere else. So click the file and then select Open. And then you'll see all the areas or all the parts of the SVG that are available. So I'm going to change my image name over here to Penguin Ornament. And under tags, because I use my tags quite often, I'm going to type the word penguin and then select Upload. Then once you have it uploaded, you can click it and then click Add to Canvas. Then once the SVG file is uploaded into Cricut Design Space, you can do all of the customization that you need to do to make the ornament yours. So since all the pieces are all together, I need to have them selected and go up to Ungroup so that I can move all of the parts independently. Now, another really cool thing about getting your SVG files from 143 Vinyl is that everything should be sized perfectly already to the ornament. So I don't need to make any changes to the size, which is a huge bonus. But I am going to do a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to be using this scarf as a piece of printed pattern vinyl from my new DIY Alex Collection Winter Patterns. So I'm going to keep the scarf in this SVG file, but I'm going to go ahead and delete both of these bows because I'm not going to use either of them. And then for the background of the penguin, I'm actually going to be using glitter and UV resin to make a background, but I am going to use this background piece included in the SVG file because I want to put the year on the back of the ornament. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I go back through my ornaments, I always love to know, where my ornaments came from or what year they were made. And so I'm going to add in some text and I'm going to use this piece to actually size the year. So I will click the T for text and then type in 2021. And then I am going to use the font Avocado Creamy. And it's already here because I already used that font earlier today. But I love the font Avocado Creamy. It's so cute and it just makes for a fun decorative font. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that red as well to be the same color as the scarf because I also want to cut the year out of the pattern. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my year sideways because I want it to kind of go down the penguin. And I'm going to move it onto the penguin and then use the double-ended arrows to resize the year so that I know it fits well onto the ornament. I don't want it to take up the whole back necessarily, but I do want it to be nice and obvious what year I made this ornament. So that looks close enough to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click the black piece, which of course you could cut this out of vinyl if you prefer to skip glitter and UV resin. You could use your background as just vinyl, but I prefer my ornaments to sparkle a little bit, so I'm going to get rid of this piece. So I'll click the X to get rid of it, and then we're left with the year, the scarf, and then the two parts of the penguin, which I am going to use white vinyl for the body, and then I'm going to be using Old Gold StarCraft HD in matte to cut out the beak and the feet. So once you're ready, you can click the green Make It button. And then because I'm working with my Cricut Maker 3, it's going to ask me whether I'm working without a mat for Cricut Smart Materials or on a mat for everything else. So I'm going to click on a mat and then select Done. And since we're working with adhesive vinyl, we don't need to mirror anything or make any changes over here, but we do want to double check that everything is separated correctly onto 3 different mats. So then once we've double checked that, we'll click the green Continue button. And that will take us to the materials selection screen. And then once my Cricut Maker connects to my computer, next I can choose my cut setting for my material. And I'm going to be using StarCraft HD for all 3 of these because even my printed pattern vinyl is printed on StarCraft HD. So what works best on my machine is just the regular vinyl setting, but of course make sure you make any adjustments if you're cutting any kind of specialty vinyl or whatever cut setting works best for vinyl on your machine. So now let's hop over to my craft table and I'll show you how to cut all these pieces out and assemble your penguin ornament. So in order to cut out all of our adhesive vinyl, I'll remove the cover sheet from my standard grip mat and place the vinyl that's just a little bit larger than my cut in the upper left-hand corner of the mat. When it's well stuck down, you can open up your machine and put the mat underneath the white guides on the sides of your machine. Then when it's ready, the flashing arrow will blink, so you can press that button to load it into your mat. And if you have a 3rd generation machine like I do, your machine will actually measure the entire length of your mat. And then when it's ready, the middle button will flash so you can press it to begin cutting. Then I'll repeat this process for all the other colors of vinyl that I have. Next up, I need to trim a piece off of my printed pattern sheet of vinyl in order to place it on the mat. But I'll give you a little bit of a tip when it comes to working with printed patterns. If you know that you want to capture a certain section of your pattern, be sure to trim it accordingly so that you know that your cut will be placed over top that pattern. So for example, what I mean is that both the 2021 numbers and the scarf are very thin. So I'm not going to attempt to put any of like these larger reindeer in them because I know they're not going to be able to be seen. So instead, I'm going to cut a piece over from this section because it mostly has a bunch of little pieces that I think will be captured much better and much more easily be able to be seen than some of these larger pieces. So I'm just going to cut a piece over from here. And then place it in the upper left-hand corner of my mat again. Then once everything is finished cutting on your Cricut, you can use your pin pen weeding tool to weed away all the excess vinyl and apply it all to transfer tape. Once transfer tape is applied, use a squeegee and apply medium pressure. Once all of our pieces of vinyl ready, next we can start working on our penguin. So I'm going to use my pin pen and I'm going to remove the white film covering over the acrylic on just the top side where I'm going to be working. Since I'm using UV resin and glitter, I like to leave the back side covered in case any UV resin happens to seep through the hole or any comes over the edges. It's much easier to remove if there's still a film on. So I'll just use my pin pen to lift the film at one corner and then pull it off nice and easily. If you are making a penguin ornament and you want to make a more traditional looking penguin, I highly recommend using the Volcano Starcraft glitter because it's a black color with a holographic finish. Regular black glitter can look kind of matte or flat underneath UV resin, so I always like to use holographic when it comes to black glitter. But since I really wanted my Christmas spirit pattern to pop, I decided to make my penguin the color Crystal Waters, which is like a fun winter blue with a holographic finish. And the reason that I chose Crystal Waters is because, as you can see, there's a lot of light blue accents in this pattern vinyl, so I thought the two would look really, really great together. So in order to get started making my penguin acrylic ornament using the glitter and UV resin, I first placed my ornament on top of a silicone trivet so that I don't get any glitter or UV resin onto my table. Then I'm going to take my UV resin and pour a little bit of it into a medicine cup so that I can mix the glitter in. I always think that the glitter ends up turning out a little bit more evenly when you do it this way. You of course could go ahead and apply your UV resin and then just add glitter on top, but I never get as even of a result as if I mix the two together. So I put about 5 milliliters of UV resin into my medicine cup, and we'll go ahead and mix the glitter straight into that. Don't forget to put your UV resin back inside the box so that while you're using the UV lamp, there's no risk of curing your UV resin. So I'll start by just mixing in a little bit of glitter. You can always add more, but you can't take away. So I recommend starting really, really slow. And then when you want to see how dense the glitter is in your UV resin, you can just kind of pick it up with your stick and see how it looks. I want mine to be pretty dense, so I'm going to keep adding more glitter. And you don't want to change the consistency of your UV resin. If it ends up seeming more sticky and thicker than when it originally started, then you'll need to add more UV resin so that it doesn't change the consistency. I think that's looking a bit better, but I might add a little bit more. Yeah, I like that color a whole lot better. So then I'm just going to use my silicone stick and start adding the glitter and UV resin on top of my ornament and spreading it around. Be sure to push the UV resin all the way to the very edges of the ornament, but don't push it any further than the edge so that it doesn't leak over the side. UV resin is self-leveling and it's honestly really forgiving, so this is a pretty easy thing to do, even if you've never done it before. Then once your UV resin is spread all the way over your blank, I like to get down even with the side of my blank, and I like to check all the edges and make sure that the UV resin has been pushed all the way over. I also may add a little bit more glitter because the glitter is looking a little bit darker right now since there's still a white film on the back side of the penguin, but it looks to me like it's going to be thinner than I thought. So I'm just getting down at eye level and looking at all the edges, making sure that they look really nice. You can also look across the blank to see if there's been any air bubbles, like kind of in the center of it. You can sort of look at the reflection in the light to see if there's any bubbles or issues. That looks pretty good to me, but I do think that I'm going to add a little bit more glitter just to give it a little bit more dense color. So I'm just going to open up the shake side of my glitter shaker, and I'm just very gently going to add more glitter. I'm going to concentrate my glitter around the outside of the penguin ornament because the white vinyl in the middle is going to cover up quite a bit of the body. So you won't be able to see that from the front side anyway. And the feet will be covered by old gold vinyl as well. So keep in mind what your SVG file looks like and what your vinyl decal is going to cover. Whoops. A little bit more glitter than I intended to add up there at the top, but that's okay. We'll be adding another layer of UV resin on top, so even if it's not perfectly smooth, we will be able to smooth it out in the next step. And since I have a silicone stir stick that I want to be able to clean all this UV resin off, I'll just leave it on top the silicone trivet and cure it with the ornament. And that way I'll be able to peel all of the UV resin right off. So next I'm going to take my UV lamp from 143 Vinyl. I love that it's mint color, makes it so cute. Set it over top of my ornament, and I'm gonna cure it twice for 60 seconds apiece. Then once the curing is finished, I'll set the UV lamp aside again on its base. And we may need to do another layer of UV resin since I sprinkled glitter directly on top of the UV resin instead of mixing it in. There's a little bit sitting on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bottle of UV resin and I'm going to pour some straight from the bottle on top of the ornament so that we can add another layer before adding any vinyl and transfer tape. But the neat thing about using a silicone stir stick like this is now that it's been cured, I can literally just peel the pieces of UV resin off in chunks, and now I have a perfectly clean silicone stir stick again. So like I said, since we're not mixing anything in, I can add the UV resin directly on top of the blank and just pour it on. And we just need to be able to do a thin layer to seal in all of the glitter that we added on the second time. So once I think I've spread everything around using my silicone stir stick, I'll just get down to the side again and look for any areas that don't have even coverage or maybe don't have quite as much coverage as the rest of the ornament. So then once all my coverage looks even, I noticed that I added a little bit too much UV resin down by my penguin's foot and some of it spilled down the side. So what I do when that happens is I like to use a baby wipe and I'll clean it off before I actually cure the UV resin. That way it doesn't cure over the side of the foot and add an extra lump onto my ornament that I don't want. So I'm just going to super carefully pick it up, of course with my glove still on, and wipe the area away using a baby wipe. Then once I do that, I need to go back and check for any spots that I messed up when I picked up the penguin. And once I think it looks good, I'll go ahead and cure the clear layer of UV resin for 2 sections of 60 seconds. All right, and once it's finished curing, we can go ahead and add the vinyl pieces on this side of the blank. So first I'm going to go ahead and do the body, since that's going to be the background, and I'm going to use the parchment paper method for that so that I can see exactly where I want to place my vinyl. So to use the parchment paper method, what I'll do is I'll take my piece of vinyl and peel off the backing. And then I'll place the vinyl and transfer tape onto the parchment paper with a little stripe being exposed at the top. And this is going to allow me to stick it to the blank when I'm ready, but that way I don't have to commit any earlier than I want to, so that I can place the vinyl exactly where I want it to go. But I can still also see through the piece of parchment paper, so I can see the blank underneath it, and I can see exactly where I'm placing the body. I think that looks pretty even, so I'll just smooth down the top where the transfer tape is exposed. And then I'll pull the parchment sheet out of the vinyl and transfer tape and then slowly lower it down onto the penguin. Then I'll use my squeegee to burnish it down well. And remove my piece of transfer tape. Next, we'll go ahead and place the beak and the feet using the exact same method. Do you see how I can see the actual color of the vinyl through the parchment paper? This allows me to adjust it on the actual blank before committing to my placement. So we'll flip it over and see if that looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good matching up with the feet. But I don't really like the placement of the beak. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll go ahead and remove the section at the bottom and go ahead and line up the feet, since I think that they look pretty good together. And then that will give me the freedom to place the beak once I'm finished with the feet. Once I think that those look good, I'll stick down the transfer tape at the top and remove the parchment paper. Burnish well with my squeegee, of course. And then remove the transfer tape. Whoops. Okay, then I can place the beak at the top. And remove the transfer tape. Then the last piece we have left on this side is to place the scarf. So I really love being able to use the parchment paper method because it just allows me lots of flexibility without having to commit too early and messing up my vinyl pieces. So I know I like that placement. So lay it down nice and gently. Then I'll use my squeegee to burnish it well and remove my transfer tape. So now we have one side finished, and we had the opportunity to go ahead and be finished there. We don't have to add any UV resin on top. But since the backside is going to be nice and smooth, I do usually like to add another layer of clear UV resin over the top side just to make sure that everything looks nice and finished and feels nice and smooth. Then we'll move on to the backside. All right, and now the front side of our ornament is totally complete, totally sealed in, and looking so cute. So now it's time to work on the back side. So as you can see, I had plenty of UV resin seep around to the back side, which is exactly why I said that I like to leave this film on. So now I'm going to use my pin pen to remove the film on the back side. And that should clear away a lot of the mess if we had any stuff seep over. So I was just kind of able to snap it off there at the corner. We had a little bit come through on the back side, but that's okay. It's still gonna look super cute. So now on the back side, all we're going to do is add that 2021 and then add another layer of UV resin over top of this side as well. But I'm gonna use parchment paper for this just in case so that I can place the 2021 exactly where I want it to go. Try to make it as centered on my penguin as I can. All right, I think something like that looks pretty good. So I'll push down that top stripe of transfer tape. Remove the parchment paper and smooth down the 2021. Actually, it's a little bit crooked, but that's okay. We've already committed. So I'm gonna go ahead and just squeegee it down. And remove that transfer tape. And I love being able to use a pattern on the back side as well. And the key to this is making sure that you have lots and lots of contrast. That's why I used a light colored glitter with a dark colored pattern to make sure that there was plenty of contrast between the layers. So now all we need to do is a very thin layer of UV resin across the back to seal in the vinyl, and then we are all finished. And again, you could leave this totally unsealed, but since I have the other side completely smooth, I just like to keep both sides consistent. So I would either not seal either side with extra UV resin or seal both. Once everything looks good, we'll do 2 last cures for 60 seconds each, and then we'll be all finished. And once the ornament is finished curing, all it needs is a hanger on the top, whether that's a ribbon or a hook, and it's ready to go on your Christmas tree or make a super sweet Christmas gift. If you decide that you want to make your own acrylic Christmas ornament, I'll link everything that I used down in the description of this video. And if you decide to shop at 143 Vinyl, then you can use my code ALEX5 to save 5% on your purchase. If you haven't already joined one of my crafty fams on Facebook, I would love to have you be a part of them. So I'll link both of my Facebook groups down in the description of the video as well. And if we don't already know each other, then I would love to get to know you on social media. So please be sure to find me at DIY Alex Vanover on pretty much all major social media platforms. I'll also put direct links to my profiles down in the description of the video.